Abubakar is a Nigerian programmer, Bitcoin core contributor, and CEO and CTO at Recursive Capital. He is passionate about growing the Bitcoin development ecosystem in Africa, and along with his fellow Bitcoiners launched Qala, a program designed to train the next generation of African Bitcoin and Lightning developers. He also serves as a board member of Btrust, where he is currently focusing on building the future of Bitcoin and launching Africa into the forefront of the monetary revolution. So, Abubakar.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, likewise.
It really is. There's a lot of respect here. Very excited to talk to you. What's your Bitcoin story? How did you discover Bitcoin?
Yeah, it really started in 2013, if I'm being honest, because my older bro brought back like this weird YouTube video explaining mining and how Bitcoin works, and I was 14 at the time, so I really didn't understand anything. My priorities were really music and like trying to do cool things. So then fast forward to like 2017, that was after I left high school a year earlier, and then I started reading up more about Bitcoin after he came back like, oh, because he works in the government, so they're trying to get IBM's DNA program in, and part of the syllabus was like trying to get Hyperledger in. And then he was like, oh, have you heard about blockchains, Bitcoin, what do you think about it? And I was like, I know nothing about it. So originally my plan was to get into college to read and study architecture, but then down the line, after reading a bit about Bitcoin, I was like, you know what, let me try and get into some more CS stuff, really, since I didn't understand anything I was reading. And then down the line, towards the end of the year, I started learning, you know, what's a computer, all that kind of stuff. 2018, I taught myself how to code, and then built a programming language, all that kind of fun stuff. And then 2019, I found out that Bitcoin is actually a piece of software that lives on GitHub and is openly accessible. So I started reading up about how the protocol level works, you know, P2P, proof of work, all that kind of stuff. And then I eventually started trying to look at how I could contribute. I saw a pull request by Tim Akimbo. So it was the first time I saw like a Nigerian core contributor. I was like, damn, that's possible. So in October that same year, which I think was the month it got merged, I opened my own first pull request as well. It was like one of the first issues. It was like a minor change to the UI, like literally changing the window from debug window to main window.
Nailed it.
Yeah. So after that, I started doing a lot more technical reading around Bitcoin. And then fast forward to 2020, I launched Recursive Capital, which is a now Bitcoin VC fund. Initially, we positioned ourselves as like a Web3 fund, but then we lost the whole, I guess, the battle of redefining Web3 and Bitcoin's image. So we just rebranded later in 2021. So I met quite a lot of Bitcoiners in 2020. I did the Chaincode study groups, both the Lightning first, which was interesting, because Lightning is, you need a lot more Bitcoin knowledge to get into Lightning, but I did the reverse. And then I did the Bitcoin one too. So part of that, I met quite a lot of folks. I met Bernard as well around that same time, Bernard from BitNob. And then 2021, he was like, you know, let's get more African devs, because even running Recursive, that's something we noticed early on. So we did that. We launched Qala, which is a program trying to train Bitcoin and Lightning developers in Africa. The main idea is to have a viable pipeline for them. If you're like, I want to be a Bitcoin developer, I want to work in the industry, how do I do it? Oh, there's Qala. So we target more mid to senior level developers around that side. So beyond that, it was like really cool building out, you know, Recursive, doing work on core, and then meeting all the other Bitcoiners around the world. Like the community is great. There are a lot of great folks. So in 2021, I started talking with, you know, Alex and the rest, eventually got the grant. Got to, I guess, upgrade my dev kit. That was when I started powering through a lot more pull requests. And then down in 2021, towards the end of the year, the whole Btrust thing happened, or like an open application early in the year. I did it. I didn't think I was gonna get in, because like there are way older OGs in the space, and then eventually it kept happening, you know, with the writing, and then all the way to the screening. That was cool, and then having convos with Jack was like surreal, all the way to like getting selected. So it's been a good journey, I guess, and hopefully with all the things I'm involved with, it all pans out well.
Dude, it's absolutely insane how much stuff you just went through there.
It's a journey.
So let's see, where do we start? You said you taught yourself how to code.
Yeah.
What was that process like?
It was wild, it was crazy. I mean, I went in totally blind, so I wouldn't recommend the path I went whenever I'm talking to people, because it was like, today I'm learning about how programs work, and then I'm trying to write some code. I'm looking at Stack Overflow, and then memes helped a lot.
Memes?
Memes help a lot. They help clarify things that ordinarily you would have likely read a bunch of dense material, but then like they encapsulate it in like small photos with like captions. They're like, oh, so that's kind of how it works. So outside of that, it was really trying to, I think the best thing that helped was when I got more practical in 2018. Because 2017, I was still trying to read up on like a lot of theoretical stuff.
It's like textbook stuff.
Exactly, like really dry content. But I mean, I found it interesting, but like ordinarily it would be dry. So after I did all of that, it was really Python, JavaScript, the regular ones. I did a little bit of C and C++, but I'm still not a like hardcore C or C++ developer. So really that's it. It's one of those things where I had to keep pushing myself. And then over time, it became a lot easier for me to go, oh, I'm thinking about something, I can quickly code it up. Or, hey, can I try this? And then really that's all I recommend for folks. I mean, I don't recommend everyone be a developer. It's not a great lifestyle.
Why is it not a great lifestyle?
Because you need to be really self-driven. You need to have a lot of discipline. Not a lot of people have a lot of discipline, really, especially when you want to like keep leveling up. Because there are a lot of mid-level developers all around. People who can like code up basic sites with JavaScript, but then for you to get to that next level of like contributing to open source projects or like working at large companies and doing great stuff, you need to be really disciplined. So if you're the partying type of guy, there are folks that code and do that. It's a bit of a balance.
You're
you
like
have to strike.
rockstar dev.
Yeah.
He's always closing out the bar.
Nice.
So you mentioned Chaincode Labs.
Yeah.
Was that the Chaincode residency?
Oh no, so they actually wanted to have the residency in 2020 in Africa, in Ghana, I think, but then
they had a Chaincode residency in Ghana.
No, they wanted to, but then COVID and everything, and then they postponed, and then 2020, they decided to do the study groups instead. So they have the study groups, then they have the seminars, and then they have like the residency thing.
And what is that, all virtual?
Yeah, it was all virtual, the whole study group. So it was cool because it was off the bat of me reading a lot of Bitcoin material from like even folks that were in the study group. So it was like surreal to see Merch and some of the other folks in study groups and then get to talk to them and actually ask them questions you've had the whole time. So it was really cool. I mean, like I said, I did a Lightning one first, which I actually just met a few of them right today in the conference as well, which is really cool. And then down the line, the Bitcoin one. So it's one of those things where the way the program is designed is kind of how we're doing Qala as well. Because it's more, you meet once a week and then you have a set of questions and then you have material to go over. So you jam it, come in and then answer questions, bring up questions that you have. So it's really interactive and it really helped like push me to a point where I'm a lot more driven when it comes to research. I mean, I already was like, I had to be, but then that kind of pushed it to a point where I know how to self-organize. I'm trying to learn about something. I know I could put in like points, stuff I want to read about and then follow up. So it really helped with my discipline as well.
So, I mean, you went through this path on your own pretty much. I mean, then Chaincode helped you. Yeah. When you look at that path, what lessons were there that you're presumably employing in Qala?
Oh yeah, a ton. So first and foremost, even with Qala, one of the main things we had to figure out early on is who are we looking at to get into the program? What is the desired outcome? Because that'll determine how we could scale it. Another thing was the material too. So when we started, it was a huge, still is an open application, but then after reading, 2021 is when we started. So we saw a flooding of a lot of people, mostly in Nigeria, even though it's an African project. I mean, Nigerians like to flood in things. Right. So we expected that.
There's a lot of you.
Yeah, to be fair. So statistically, it is. So we did that. We got quite a lot of folks, but then at the end of the day, we decided we might as well kind of extend the process of getting in, just so that we could see those that will make it through to the final program. Because again, there are a lot of great folks. I'm glad we did it that way. So we did the study group first. And then quite a few folks dropped out and couldn't keep up, which is a good sign that I'm glad we didn't take them to the next stage, because they could have dropped out and we'll have no guys in the program. And then they still didn't seem too ready, so then we did Chaincode's seminar material, and then we moved them to the main program itself. And then in between, we actually had some other folks join in, but they were quite good, so they went just straight from the study group all the way into the main program. So they've been in the main program for 5 weeks now. So the main thing is, we pay them a stipend because they're full-time. A lot of them quit their jobs because, again, they're senior engineers. So after that, really, we've spoken to recruiters. We did that first before we started the program because, again, we need to know what the jobs are available, the requirements, and then like backport that into the program. So we did that, and then, I'm looking forward to seeing them in the wild. We have quite a strong group. There are 13 of them. It's quite a solid group. I think even if they get in out and then like have jobs down the line, it'll be cool to see the stuff they build, because they're building a lot. So we're focusing on getting them to build on Bitcoin, not only to scale up their portfolios, but also to help in the space. Really, they need all the help they can get in structure. So
that's awesome. We got Qala has 13 people in the group.
Yeah.
They haven't been placed yet.
Yeah.
The plan is place them with companies.
Yeah. So
but then also do open source work.
No. So the priority is to get them Bitcoin jobs.
Period.
Because technically that's what we promised in the program.
Right.
So besides that, if there are folks who would like to get into open source work, we could look at how we could do that. Because again,
that's open to them.
Yeah, that's open to them as well, as whether that fits with their development journey. Because open source work is not as easy as getting a job. There's no structure. If it's grant-based, it's infrequent, and it requires quite a lot of existing developer, or should I say engineer structure, really, when it comes to mapping out what you want to do, following up by yourself, and it's kind of lonely, really.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about, to you, why is open source software important?
It's super important because it underlies, first of all, a lot of the internet infrastructure. A lot of the software in the wild all depends on open source at the end of the day. And the cool thing with open source is it allows for open accessibility for anyone who has any complaint whatsoever. So it's no longer, okay, filing a complaint to a company, waiting like a long time. If you can code, just go in, open up a pull request. So there's a tremendous amount of freedom.
Yeah, I mean, I one of the things I love about open source is, there's this meme, devs do something, like, can you fix this for me or whatever? And then the response is always like, you have not submitted a pull request.
Exactly.
Like,
exactly.
The power's in your hands, you're gonna make it happen.
Exactly. Use the strength they're using to complain to actually open a pull request.
So, I mean, you've contributed to Bitcoin Core. Have you contributed to other open source projects as well?
Yeah, a few other projects. So it ranges from like, there was one cryptography book, was like a minor change to the Python code. There are a few other projects like Zcash and some of the others. But mainly I think the major one I've done so far is definitely Bitcoin Core. All the other ones are like a bunch of projects all around this.
And was that intimidating? I mean, I hear it's a very unique developer ecosystem.
Yeah. So for Bitcoin, it's unique. It's quite a large community, but at the same time, the higher up you go towards like the maintainer level, the smaller it is.
Right.
So the cool thing with that is they're actually open to like a mentorship type role, which was really helpful when I got in the first pull request, because I had no clue what I was doing. I mean, that was the first time I compiled core to begin with. And then years down the line, I found out the way I was doing it was super inefficient. Like, I wasn't taking advantage of like parallel processing or anything like that. So the journey it's a lot easier than people would think, because if you come in as a noob, a lot of people know you're a noob because, again, it shows you're not a contributor or anything. Right. So they already know that you likely don't know what you're doing, or you might get a bit confused. So they don't come in too harsh as they would.
What do you mean, as in like the built-in reputation system in GitHub?
Yeah,
right?
on GitHub, because you could tell if someone's a member or like a contributor and all of that kind of stuff. So if they do see that, they tend to be a lot nicer to you, tend to be a lot harsher to themselves, actually.
Right. Which
is good for new people. I mean, they walk you through it. If you can't squash like the commits, they help you out, all that kind of stuff around the journey. So it's difficult in the sense that there's a lot for you to have in terms of like background knowledge. So learning how the pull request, I guess the flow works, because not all of them are the same. You could have a big change and then it gets merged really quickly as opposed to like a small one. And at the same time too, there's a lot of things to do with regards to how you check in, because you have to keep following up on the pull request. Again, there are like hundreds and hundreds of pull requests, and a lot keeps coming in. If you're keeping track of that, some gets updated, and then it's like a pull request from like 2 years ago type stuff. So yeah, it's
a marathon.
Yeah, right? It is. It doesn't start in like a day or so like people would expect, but down the line you keep growing, especially with your capacity to handle all the stuff that's going on, because there's a lot of activity.
I mean, a lot of Bitcoin critics, particularly among competing cryptocurrencies, say the Bitcoin developer ecosystem is too hostile to new developers. You disagree with that?
I strongly disagree, because not only with my own personal journey, I've spoken to other devs that just started out or have been in the space. I mean, all you have to do is just go to GitHub, really. All these things are all just narratives that they like to throw around, but I think Bitcoin has a more welcoming community than the rest. in all honesty. I mean, the others are still, a lot of shitcoining going on, a lot of pumping of bags. Really, the priority isn't like so much towards signal, but with Bitcoin, a lot of people that work on it really care about it. So they're really, really open to getting people on that same page. So it's really, really welcoming.
Awesome. So you also started this fund, Recursive Capital. What is the mission for Recursive? How do you view that mixing into everything else that you're doing?
Yeah, so in general, my life's goal, I guess until I die, is to help with growing the Bitcoin ecosystem, both in Africa and around the world. And part of that mission is obviously getting funding to the necessary projects now.
Right.
The thing is, in Africa and some of these parts that we're looking at, there aren't too many developers to begin with, which is why I'm involved with Qala,
Right.
and there aren't too many companies as well to fund, which is why the way we're structured with Recursive, at least the way we would like to be, is not only be providing funding, but we're trying to looking at things like doing research around the space and then trying to highlight things like that, and trends that will be with Recursive research. And then labs will be more of practical things like incubating, doing liquidity management, probably pumping out companies ourselves, like the wallet I'm building. And outside of that, it's going to be a thing where we're looking to fund these companies, bring them in, and then help them grow. We want to be as active as possible in the space because it's still nascent. So
Not just money.
Money is not the answer.
Right.
It's definitely not the answer, especially with open source. You can't expect throwing capital
You can't just
would
throw money
magically
at it. Yeah.
bring out 10x devs. Doesn't work that way.
But money's a part of it.
Yeah, it is. But then the way you deploy the capital has to be strategic as well.
And to provide guidance. And
100%.
so it's all complementary. All
Yeah.
these things are complementary. So then the third leg of that complementary triangle is Btrust.
Yeah, so Btrust is kind of, it isn't exactly near to what Recursive will be doing because we're not going to be funding any sort of equity-based funding. It's going to be all helicopter money technically.
Btrust is. Btrust is more of a charitable organization.
Yeah. So the whole idea is to really look at the space and try and see how best to grow it as organically and as strategically as possible. Because then again, there's a lot of money and we don't want to just throw it in and expect things to happen. So we're trying to roll it out in piecemeal. So we're starting off with developers and then grant style funding down to hopefully probably projects and then maybe education efforts all the way till as we're scaling out outside of Africa as well. So it's gonna be a journey. A lot of people have the notion that things should get up, I guess.
Right away, we need it
immediately.
now.
But we're doing a lot of the structuring. They didn't joke around what they said. That is an irrevocable blind trust with full control on the board members. They really meant that. So we're doing a lot of running around to set up a lot of things. We have the Genesis principles, which is good. Especially for the community.
Was it like a constitution?
Basically. So the idea is like an immutable set of principles that will guide the entirety of the lifetime of the fund. So the idea obviously is Bitcoin only, open source projects, and then we have provisions for things like transparency. And then what happens if Bitcoin has a hard fork? What chain do we follow? Things like that. Obviously with the user majority is a bit complex, but it's a rough way to have an estimate on what to follow. So there are a lot of things like that. And then there's still a lot to announce. We'll be announcing a few more things before the year ends towards setting up custody, all that kind of cool stuff, I guess. And then hopefully the next year or so, we could start deploying capital.
So Btrust was launched by Dorsey and Jay-Z, right?
Yeah.
And they each gave 250 Bitcoin. Is that the right
Well,
number?
there isn't any clarity on what the split was, but it was both of them.
But it was 500 Bitcoin total?
Yeah, in total it's 500.
So at current prices, that is, I shouldn't do math on air. At current prices, that's 100 would be 30K, 300K. No, 100 would be 3 million. So it's like $15 million, $20 million.
Yeah, thereabout.
So I'm gonna start fresh. Jay-Z, Dorsey, they each, together they put in 500 Bitcoin. Yeah. About $15 million at current prices. I think this is a really cool concept because if Bitcoin keeps performing, as it does historically, you guys might never run out of those 500 Bitcoin.
Yeah, and the cool thing is, given the space is still new, there isn't going to be too much to throw money around.
Right.
So what will likely happen, or at least what I think would happen, is as we're deploying capital, Bitcoin's price keeps going up. By the time we're done to a certain stage, we wouldn't necessarily need to re-up on the stock, really.
Right.
So.
But is that something that you guys are actively thinking about? That this 500 Bitcoin, if we manage it properly, it just may never.
Well, yeah, we're looking at that. We're also looking at in the event that Bitcoin keeps plunging,
Yeah.
or a stage where we deploy quite a lot of it down the line, we still have to look for ways to get more funding.
Yeah. What do you do? Like if Bitcoin falls down to like 10K, you guys just gonna panic sell it all?
Nah. It's not going to be a panic sell really. It's going to be more more strategic around how we get liquidity to bridge it. Could be to have that like locked up as a Bitcoin backed loan, probably. That could be interesting, or probably keep some of the capital in like USD or something like that. But yeah, we're looking at things around that as well as trying to replenish the stash.
Oh, but you are actually considering loans. I mean, even if the price goes up, loans could be.
This is with regards to loans and all that. This is all on a personal level. I'm just spitballing here.
So you guys are still basically working out that plan. You haven't
Yeah,
deployed
that's
any money
still
or
no.
anything.
Nothing has been deployed. It's still waiting on things like getting the entity set up, custody, all that kind of stuff.
Really powerful stuff. How many people are on the board?
4 of us.
And it's a mix of Africans. Is there an Indian on the board?
None at all.
Just
That's
all
why the main
Africans?
focus is Africa initially.
Right.
But if it's a
But
all
they
African board,
put India in there originally, right?
yeah, that's still the goal. But then the goal is now Africa initially, and then you expand to other global south regions like India and then Pakistan probably, and the rest.
Cool.
So yeah,
That's
we're
awesome.
eventually gonna have to get a lead as well, because we're all working part-time, full-time, if that makes sense.
And do you get paid? You're not getting paid for Btrust?
No,
or-
we're not getting it. We're not getting paid.
You're not taking a cut of your 500 Bitcoin?
No. The way I
Pay yourself a Bitcoin?
the way I want to structure it is all the work I'm doing, I want to do it as pro bono as possible, so that my incentives are aligned. And then with Recursive Capital, I can be an animal.
That's where you make. That's where you pay the rent.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I mean, you grew up in Nigeria your whole life, right? So as a Nigerian, with the population of 300 million people, probably one of the most populous countries in the world, almost the same population as the United States, but much smaller. How do you view, what does freedom mean to you?
That's a good one. So I definitely think freedom has a lot to do with sovereignty. I think they're intrinsically tied together, because if you're really free, you'll likely be sovereign on all fronts. So financially sovereign, and even in terms of philosophically sovereign at the end of the day too, because again, we're moving into more and more, not necessarily authoritarian regimes, but more censored communities and more cashless communities, which they require you to get on-railed into things that could easily be censored.
Right.
So that ties into now, like credit scores and like censoring on ideas and the whole PC culture and everything. So I think obviously for you to maintain your freedom, because the first thing that's attacked if you want to harm freedoms is money. So it makes a lot of sense for you to have that sort of financial freedom, and then that translates into expanding the rest of the freedom across your life, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, so unfortunately, I have not been to Africa, period, let alone Nigeria.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to go for Fode's conference in Ghana.
Okay.
But I would love to go to Nigeria at some point. But can you clue us in a little bit, like how do payments work in Nigeria? What's like if you go to a store, is it still mostly cash or?
Oh, no. A lot of people still use cards. It depends on the store. So if you're talking about more like mall type stores around the cities, is usually cards or like cash. If you're talking a bit more rural, you're talking bank transfers actually.
The rural is not cash, it's bank transfer.
Yeah, bank transfer as well as cash. So you tend to have shopkeepers go, okay, if you don't have any cash, you have a bank account, you have transfer, then you have addresses you can send to, bank accounts, and then you do that. So another thing is, unlike other parts in Africa, we don't necessarily have mobile money.
You don't have like M-Pesa, that's Kenya, right?
That's all Kenya, yeah. So with regards to that, MTN, one of the larger, I guess, cell carriers in Nigeria, it's actually a South African company. They're looking to get into the mobile money space, so hopefully that brings in a ton of folks on, I guess, mobile money. And that will likely key into Bitcoin adoption too, because there's quite a lot of ways to integrate mobile money with Bitcoin in general.
But do you think, so, I mean, you're obviously on the younger side.
Yeah.
Among your peers, do people still use cash, or is it?
Yeah, a lot of people still use cash.
Because in America, it's like everyone our age, they stopped using cash.
Oh, wow.
Like I pull out the cash and they're like, well, what are you doing? What is that paper?
Nah, we still have a lot. It's still heavily cash based.
Awesome. That's good for privacy.
Exactly.
No privacy, no freedom, you know?
Exactly.
So, the Bitcoin community in Nigeria, Is it a strong community? Is it growing? Or?
It's getting there. I mean, before I knew about like Bitcoin and everything, there's still guys inside, and it was mostly speculative, and then a small amount of folks like out in Lagos and some of the other parts either building, projects like Bitcoin and some of the others. And then now it's like
Bitcoin?
Yeah, Bitcoins. It's
okay.
an exchange, it's one of the early exchanges in Nigeria, buy and sell Bitcoin. And right now there are a lot more folks across the entire pipeline. So quite some folks doing, core development and all of that. Quite a few folks at like the beginner stage, like running meetups and all of that. And then in the middle where you have like folks who have built companies or are trying to do some of this community organizing. So it's getting to a stage where it's significant enough.
Am I correct that the Nigerian government, they did a soft ban of Bitcoin? Was that they like moved against Bitcoin to a degree this year?
Yeah, so it was the CBN specifically.
Okay.
So they had this circular ban, which essentially said if you're if you're like a fintech company, you can't necessarily work with banks to process crypto payments,
Okay.
Bitcoin included. So that sort of translated into average folks too. So if I was to send you a bank transfer and then in the memo I put like Bitcoin or crypto, your account gets banned instantly.
And so does yours.
No, they do it on the receiving end, which is like crazy. So if
you just send, you should just send those bank transfers to people you don't like and just get their accounts.
Yeah, I mean, I had one of my accounts closed for that same reason. Someone sent it in, like the memo had Bitcoin. Then my bank was like, bro, they've closed the account. I'm like, oh, damn. But that's why I don't bank on the regular rails. I've been Bitcoin only the whole time. I only got a bank account because I had to travel out. You still can't prove you can sustain yourself with Bitcoin. You still need a bank account, unfortunately.
Oh, like other countries won't let you in?
Yeah. Because if you're proving, proof of, I guess, finance, you have to use a bank account. They don't recognize like a Bitcoin address with a ton of money in it.
That's interesting. Hopefully that changes soon.
Hopefully it changes. Hopefully.
So how do you think, are you worried at all about, I mean, you obviously are creating this grassroots, or helping to foster this grassroots, it's bigger than any individual. Yeah. I know you would agree with that.
100%.
Foster this grassroots movement in Nigeria. Are you concerned that the Nigerian government's going to rug pull you?
I mean, it's interesting because a lot of people in, the Bitcoin space and in general like to go, after the government and all of that. But at the end of the day, if you really want to get it to a stage where a lot of people have access to it, you still need them to come on board for favorable regulations so people have access. But at the same time, the Nigerian government isn't like 100% against Bitcoin or crypto. It's more to do with like a reactionary 2017 type, I guess, policy that we saw across the world. So it's a thing of we have to just sit down with them and really explain what it is, the benefits, economically speaking, as well as some of the ways they could actually also benefit from it, as well as average folks. So I think it's a thing of just sitting together and talking, really.
So you seem pretty positive about it. You're not too concerned.
I'm totally positive.
But they didn't like arrest people for owning Bitcoin or anything?
No, it's not on that sort of crazy level. Yeah. The only thing is, if you're involved with like protests and stuff like that, they definitely closed down accounts.
That's when it happened, right? It was the SARS movement?
Yeah, I think it was the tail end after that or during that sort of period, because they had all the accounts blocked for all the activists, and then a lot of them couldn't even travel out because if they go to the airport, they're like, you're on the no-fly list. And then beyond that, they started moving towards Bitcoin, and then I guess for them that signaled, so that's how you want to play it.
Right.
So let's play the game. So it's really one of those things. And it's a good thing also for the wider ecosystem that they had that sort of ban, because what happened was people started moving to P2P.
Right, self-custody.
Exactly. So that helps with the resilience, especially with regards to the liquidity, which is really, really good. I mean, you don't want to have all of that locked up in like exchanges that are.
And specific, SARS was an anti-police protest.
Yeah,
right?
so it was one of the units in the police department where like the main things they were doing at the time was looking at young folks and then like raiding them of cash and all that kind of harassment. So they already closed down that unit already. So I guess the protests work.
Interesting. It keeps coming back to money, right? So like the protesters were getting cut off from the financial system.
Exactly.
They were protesting other people who were getting their money seized.
Yeah.
Traveling, you need money to travel.
Exactly.
It just always comes back.
It's always about money.
To the money. But it's not, in open source software, it's not just the money you need.
No. It's more ideologically driven there.
So when you think about Bitcoin, you know, a lot of Bitcoiners say Bitcoin is inevitable.
Yeah.
Do you think Bitcoin's inevitable?
I mean, from the point of view of saying, given how things have been progressing, like from a monetary evolution standpoint, it is something that's inevitable because as you're having more, I guess, hammering down on rights and then censorship, it's going to likely result in something that would have to guard against all those sort of externalities that you have. So I think from that point of view, I think it is inevitable, I guess. And another thing to consider is, even if Bitcoin wasn't invented, there will likely be something like Bitcoin down the line. Again, because of that need.
Right.
Folks will still try to band up. I mean, Bitcoin isn't the
Some
first
kind
version
of digital
of itself.
open source
Exactly. There have been many different versions. It's just that Bitcoin solved how to get it working without necessarily relying on banks or having some sort of fragile structuring with regards to governance.
So what's your biggest concern when it comes to the current state of Bitcoin?
I mean, there are a couple of concerns I have. From the dev side is obviously, there are a few devs that are leaving the space, like core maintainers, which is...
Do you think they're actually leaving?
I mean, I hope they come back, some of them.
They're coming back as NIMs, is one of the theories,
a lot of
right?
people have been bringing that up, and I think that would be best, because down the line we'll likely need more anonymous Bitcoin developers.
Right, so a NIM is a pseudonym, so it's someone who's not going by their government name.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you regret going by your...
I 100% regret. As you can tell from some of my handles, there's an attempt to kind of make it a pseudonym, but then it didn't work out, because I eventually had to show myself down the line.
Well, your Twitter handle is I hate 1999.
Yeah.
What happened in 1999?
I was born, and in 2010 was when I joined. So I keep telling folks I have no idea why I chose that. I thought it was cool, I guess, at the time.
So you don't particularly hate that year?
Nah, not at all. That would be like weird.
That was one of the most important questions I had to ask you was why you hated 1999 so much.
No, it's totally unrelated, definitely.
So the dev ecosystem, I mean, that's obviously why you are focused on Qala, and just like to create more devs, to make a more robust community.
Yeah, for sure.
When you think about Africa as a whole, a lot of Bitcoiners, particularly in Western countries, myself included, tend to say, you know, Bitcoin is for the people that need it, right?
Exactly.
You know, Westerners, maybe we have really good banking relationships. I can travel without proving my finances. Like, we have all these freedoms that we take for granted, and maybe the appeal of Bitcoin is not as obvious as in developing countries, as in Africa, Latin America. But at the same time, it is a little bit of a LARP, right? Because, I mean, I've never gone to Africa. Most of the people that talk about it have never gone to Africa. The ecosystem in Africa seems to be growing at a really quick pace right now, recently, but it feels like a more recent phenomenon. How do you view Bitcoin, open source in Africa? What does the future hold there? What are the pain points?
I mean, with regards to pain points right now, there isn't any structure, which is why, you know, Qala and the other initiatives we're working on is there. Because again, folks want to get involved. There's a ton of enthusiasm. There are a lot of developers actually and engineers in Africa, but they're either being pushed into shitcoins or working at Google and some of these other companies. So for us, it's like, okay, all that talent exists, then it just means we have to structure in pipelines for them to get into the space.
Right.
Now, with regards to picking up, as of recent, it has definitely, I think we've started that whole trend of having exponential growth when it comes to, well, the community as a whole. I mean, initially before, maybe the last 3 years, it wasn't as frequent as it is right now for folks to say, oh, you know, I'm trying to get into Bitcoin, or I have a Bitcoin company, things like that. It was still around, okay, I've heard about Bitcoin, I have some Bitcoin, but I shitcoin, all that kind of stuff. So with regards to concerns, it will be, I hope that a lot more programs like Qala at different stages of the development, like from zeros to like you could code, and then in between that and then the main program itself, and then towards the tail end,
right,
a lot of them hopefully will come out. If they do, then we can now start looking at a more thriving and like vibrant ecosystem, because if you have more devs, you have more companies. If you have more companies, you have more innovation. If you have more innovation, you have more problem solved. So I think that's just the way I look at it, and I hope it's going to keep continuing the way it is right now.
You think it will?
I'm super optimistic. If I didn't think it would, I would just I'll start buying shitcoins.
So I mean, you keep saying this word shitcoins. You know, what is a shitcoin to you?
Yeah, a shitcoin is anything that isn't Bitcoin.
Anything that is. So this chair a shitcoin?
Yeah, it is. The chair is a shitcoin. Naira is a shitcoin. My shoes are a shitcoin.
So I mean, it's good that we have you on the record. Chairs are indeed shitcoins. We don't own these chairs. So the naira, did I pronounce that right? The naira. The naira is the Nigerian national currency, right?
Oh yeah.
What is the history of that? Is it a strong currency?
Initially, it was at a point back in like maybe 50 years ago. It was actually almost on parity with the pound. And in some points, it was actually even higher than the pound, which is like, wow, that's insane. But then over the years, throughout quite a lot of devaluation, a lot of inflation, all that kind of stuff, it all went from like $50 to like $100 in 2015, and now it's like around $600 per naira, which is insane.
Oof.
And there's also a food crisis, which adds a lot more pressure. So people earning in naira, spending in naira, really there's no room for savings at all. And a lot of people are battling to make ends meet. Hence why Bitcoin is a lot more of a convincing argument right now, and why you see a lot of people tend to flock towards Bitcoin, both for remittance, local commerce, as well as savings.
Because you get that combination of both.
Yeah.
Censorship resistance and increased purchasing power over time.
Exactly.
And I imagine the perspective of Bitcoin's short-term volatility is more understandable when you have a currency that's just constantly losing value.
Yeah, 100%. And that's part of the reason why some folks move into stable coins, or like they just hold US dollars, either physical or in like a bank account.
Is it easy to hold US dollars in Nigeria?
It's easier to have physical US dollars than to have like a domiciliary account where you're holding US dollars.
So they hold the actual like greenbacks?
Yeah, actual greenbacks, yeah.
Can you like just go in a store and just pay with
No, you can't do that, but there are a lot of places to exchange that for naira.
Awesome.
So it's like if you have a ton of USD in cash, the moment you need to start spending, all you have to do is change it up. That way you're not losing the value of your currency over time as you would with the naira.
Awesome. So I mean, this has been an absolutely fucking awesome conversation.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed it. It's really cool because I mean we kind of have similar perspectives in terms of like I launched an open source foundation that I'm getting no money for.
I see.
I have a venture fund that's Bitcoin only that I make money on, right? Yeah. So like I see that combination there, but I feel like you're doing it way more sophisticated. So anyway, so in the Bitcoin community, one of the things we talk about a lot is this idea of a circular economy, this idea of Bitcoiners earning Bitcoin, spending Bitcoin. How do you see, do a lot of businesses accept Bitcoin right now in Nigeria? How do you see growing that? Is that a priority of yours?
Yeah, for sure. So the thing is, if we're talking about individuals saving Bitcoin or holding Bitcoin and using Bitcoin in and out, both locally and outside, we have to look at ways to make it a lot more convenient for them to actually use it. And part of those things is, right now, merchants don't accept Bitcoin directly. I wish they would, but we're still like maybe 2 years out. We'll likely need to get, Lightning point of sales machines, because again, those could do offline transactions, which would be good for like local retailers and some of the larger branches as well. So in general, it would be, the priority will likely be getting that to a stage where it's possible. Right now, it's not impossible. I personally have been paying for things using Bitcoin for a while now. Now, one of the ways you do that is, again, back to the bank transfers, for example, as well as cash. Now, there are companies like CoinProfile where you literally you show up with a bank account, like you send it to them, or at least you put it into the service, and then they generate a Bitcoin address, you pay that address, and then it straight makes up a bank transfer on your behalf. And the cool thing with that is the government can't necessarily attack that because you can't tie in the transactions. It'll appear as a regular wire, really. Right. And then you could do a similar thing for getting cash. So what you do is the same thing, but instead it will be to like a Baru Dechange type person where they'll give you cash in exchange for the transfer you made.
What, so you pay them Bitcoin and then they give you cash?
Yeah. There are a lot of people that do that directly. You could do it via, the method I explained with CoinProfile, or you could just generally do, an actual trade with the person in the store. Like, oh, you accept Bitcoin? Yeah, you could do that, and then you could send him Bitcoin and then settle it, but that's still happening not at like a large scale. So it still needs to be at a point where we have the point of sale machines, whether it's with Lightning or we have cards that have, I guess, Bitcoin on it, and then make the payment and then like switch to exactly. So it'll likely be things around that. But yeah, it's not impossible to pay with Bitcoin. I know a lot of folks that do that already.
But not that much. There's not that many stores that are accepting it directly.
Not at all. Not at all. Even the ones that would are like really small stores, like you know the person type store.
Right. And what do you? Yeah. So I mean, do you think? I mean, in like 5 years, you think we're gonna have? You think I'm just gonna be able to get off a plane in Lagos and just
100%.
not convert my currency and just go and pay Bitcoin?
Yeah, 100%. I think based on the conversation I've been having with merchants, a lot of them are open to getting Bitcoin or accepting Bitcoin, again, because a lot of them don't necessarily want to hold naira.
Right.
And they can't necessarily get USD like that accessible as well. So it's a thing where they're like, okay, we're enthusiastic, but how do we do it? And then we're like, oh, okay. Now we have to start thinking about, okay, is it point of sales? Are we doing it via Lightning? Are we doing it via Bitcoin? So the thing is for us to really just start deploying test cases around and then seeing what works best or what the consumers respond to.
You were saying you were building a wallet app. What's the deal with that?
Yeah, so it was born out of really personal experience. So I'm the type to be constantly looking for Bitcoin services that work with the regular financial system because I don't hold, accounts and stuff like that. All I do is everything's all in Bitcoin, and then if I want to spend, then I step out. Now the thing with that is it's not as convenient. What I usually have is like a ton of tabs on different services, different wallets, and then moving in and out. So I was thinking, I'm a huge advocate for like non-custodial wallets as well.
Right.
And part of that reason is because, again, being an open source developer and all of that. So the idea is to have a non-custodial wallet, which has a lot of these services in-app.
Right.
So the idea would be essentially Blue Wallet with a lot of these services.
So when you say non-custodial wallet, you mean you're holding your own keys,
you're
not trusting a company 100%. That can just seize your money or take your money?
100%. And it's going to be open source because, again, I would like for it to be a tool that people use and care about. And if they care that much, they could help build it as well.
That's awesome. Fantastic. One last thing. If you have cash in your pocket, two last things. You said earlier that you can't spend US dollars cash in a store.
Yeah.
Why?
So it's a thing of currency control because you don't want to have folks moving and being able to easily spend the dollar because that would incentivize holding the dollar.
Right.
Meaning the naira will likely keep crashing even more. So there are a lot of restrictions with using USD in general. So things like accounts having like insane limits at around $100 or $50, or not even being able to send it via an app, which as of recent is the case. So in general, they're hugely disincentivized to allow you to easily use cash, USD at least.
So it's government control that is preventing US dollars from being used.
Yeah, for sure, because it's not exactly, unless maybe you're in some of the tourist zones where like a foreigner, then you could likely spend, I guess, USD, but that's for checking in and stuff like that.
So are they going to try, how does Bitcoin fix that? Can Bitcoin be stopped in the same way there?
No, it can't, and that's the cool thing about it. So even if they did try to stop it, it would just keep going underground and then building out resilience until they start to contend with it, which is the case right now.
So like their biggest control point with the US dollar is they don't let you have the US dollar denominated accounts in the back end, right? That's why.
Yeah, they make it a lot more difficult too. And even if you're trying to spend out the USD, not everyone accepts a huge chunk of people don't accept.
But with
USD.
Bitcoin, it's permissionless, so you can just create a wallet. You don't have a financial institution that's holding it that can be regulated.
Exactly. And the cool thing again with Bitcoin is a lot of people think about it as just the asset.
Right.
But if you think about it as more of a monetary network, then you could be using that as a conduit.
Right.
Which is what a lot of people have been, I guess, realizing that you could do with Bitcoin. So it's more about having this monetary network that efficiently allows you to transfer value across the network, which you necessarily can't right now. So it's cheap, instant, global. And the cool thing with that is, once you have that sort of payment rail that's that global and easily accessible, you could easily plug in applications that talk over Bitcoin, but still settle locally.
Right, they settle in naira or dollars
or whatever local currency
but they're transferring through Bitcoin.
Exactly.
But that's probably a short-term thing, right? That's like an adoption thing, and then we just move fully to Bitcoin.
A lot of places will likely still keep using that down the line, but maybe we'll see some self-organize around Bitcoin and like having like a local Bitcoin economy as well.
If you were talking to a young African child, young Nigerian kid, thinking about getting into Bitcoin, where do they start?
I definitely say you first of all have to really look at the basic material. So Jameson Lopp has a good site where he has a bunch of resources, and part of that is things like, you know, Hello Bitcoin's videos, which are really short, but at the same time they're accurate, which a lot is missing in this space. A lot of people like to teach Bitcoin, but they're teaching the wrong thing, you know, with regards to mining and everything. But they're quite short videos. There's a lot of resources on the site. It's lob.net, you could go there. Outside of that, it would be to take it easy. There's a lot of information. You'll be really, really overwhelmed, especially the first 2 days plus or like week, where you're like, okay, I don't know what proof of work is, I don't know what mining is, but take it easy. What you have to do is realize Bitcoin is an entire system. It's really a monetary system, really, at the end of the day. So there are different aspects. What you have to do is understand how it works at like a general overview level, and then progress down the line. So if you want to focus on networking, you can do that. So just take it piecemeal.
I love it. Thank you.
Thank you as well.
Dude, it's a pleasure.
Pleasure.